Hello, my name is Michael Markwald, and I'm making this video from inside the Anoka County Jail, where I'm currently being held without bail by the U.S. Marshals on a federal indictment of conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine. I have several different reasons for making this video, first of which someone has to start speaking out against a group of individuals directly responsible for the vast majority of methamphetamine that hits the streets here in this county. This organization actually goes by the name the Anoka Hennepin Narcotics and Violent Crimes Task Force, who was actually put into place in an attempt to remove drugs from the streets, but that just simply is not the reality of the situation. Every time a person is caught with any amount of meth in Anoka County, an officer from this task force will show up to conduct an interview. And an interview is exactly what it is. It's the opportunity to begin working for them. If you agree, they will withhold your charges. They'll instruct you not to inform your probation about your recent arrest if on probation. And they will, of course, allow you to continue using and selling drugs as long as you provide them with 3 additional individuals distributing narcotics by actually purchasing drugs from the suspect for the task force. They call this a controlled buy. Then they go ahead and arrest those 3 individuals and offer each of them the very same opportunity. So those 3 turn into 9, 9 into 27, and so on. I think you get the picture. This task force is running a Ponzi pyramid scheme, obtaining a never-ending stream of control and money, and they're preying on our community sick and vulnerable to do it. They seize any and all cash and assets they come in contact with along the way and use the money to continue building their operation. And they use their number of busts as leverage for more manpower and even more funding to better fight this epidemic that's of their own creation. And the cycle must be stopped. Unfortunately, it's a rarity, but if you turn down their job offer, well, here I sit. Denied bail, denied treatment on an ankle monitor, and being told my guidelines are 30 years to life, and being offered a deal of 20 years in federal prison. Having 2 boys of my own, ages 7 and 11, that need me, parents I'd like to see again before they're gone, and a girlfriend I love dearly that I feel slipping away by the day. It is absolute torture knowing that there is a shortcut back out there to them. But when that shortcut requires me to compromise my core beliefs and to be thrown back into a world I wish to leave behind to assist them in being part of the problem, I just won't do it. So I prepare for trial. In the state of Minnesota, a person is by definition deemed a vulnerable adult when admitted into a facility where said facility must provide shelter, food, and clothing. Jail clearly fits that criteria. Furthermore, I think common sense would dictate that a person actually falls into that category the moment they are detained or arrested by law enforcement. I am also confident that any mental health professional and or addiction expert would testify to the fact that it is actually in that very moment when first detained, when an addict's addiction still has a hold on them and they are being bribed by an officer with the ability to walk away and continue an active addiction, that, in fact, is the single most vulnerable moment of an addict's life. Now, that has been established. State of Minnesota, Chapter 152, Drugs, Controlled Substances. State Statute 152.137, Methamphetamine-related crimes, children and vulnerable adults. Subdivision 2, Prohibited Conduct. Paragraph B, no person may knowingly cause or permit a child or vulnerable adult to inhale, be exposed to, have contact with, or ingest methamphetamine, a chemical substance, or meth paraphernalia. Subdivision 3, criminal penalty. A person who violates Subdivision 2 is guilty of a felony and may be sentenced to imprisonment for not more than 5 years or to payment of a fine of not more than $10,000 or both. I reiterate, no person may knowingly permit a vulnerable adult to be exposed to or have contact with methamphetamine. Like, for example, a custody into a life-threatening situation to conduct a controlled buy of methamphetamine. So in conclusion, not only are the policing tactics of the Anoka Hennepin Narcotics and Violent Crimes Task Force both unethical and counterproductive to the overall intended purpose of their unit, they are also highly illegal. used to get so frustrated when I was out there. Like, seriously, why can't everybody just keep their mouth shut and we could break this cycle? I now realize how ridiculous those expectations were. As I sit here today being sober and clear-minded for the very first time since I began using chemicals daily at 12 years old, and I'm gearing myself towards thinking like and being a productive and contributing member of society, my expectations of putting a stop to this cycle no longer lie with the vulnerable drug addict being exploited, but instead fall on the law enforcement officers that actually swore an oath to protect and serve the best interests of our community. In October of 2019, Detective Jonathan Sheeta of the Anoka-Hennepin Narcotics and Violent Crimes Task Force began what would turn into a 14-month investigation into me and my alleged meth distribution operation. Throughout his investigation, Detective Sheeta displayed halting conduct. He manipulated informants' testimonies and used them to mislead judges in several warrant applications, one of which for my Facebook Messenger account, where Sheeta applied for and was somehow approved an unlawfully overbroad and scopeless warrant, receiving any and all data and communication from my Facebook and Messenger accounts, going back in time 6 months and also going forward 6 months. When asked in my federal motions hearing why he submitted a request for an unlawfully overbroad search of my entire digital life, Sheeta responded under oath that this was his first and only time applying for a warrant like this, and also stated that the digital template the task force used at the time was out of date, but has been updated in accordance to current law as a result of the issues brought forth in this case. I'm still awaiting the results from this hearing, but my attorney tells me that they basically set the stage to do as they usually do in these situations and lean on Leon. United States versus Leon is a ruling from 1984 known as the good faith exception, basically stating that even if a warrant was unlawful, it will still hold up in court as long as the officer believed it to be lawful at the time of applications and execution, i.e., he was operating out of good faith. So if that holds true, what they're saying is that inexperience and or sheer incompetence constitutes as a viable justification for a clear violation of my Fourth Amendment rights. That's how diluted the words of the United States of America's Constitution have become. Another notable mention would be the fact that for the first 8 months of that 14-month investigation, I actually had 2 felony body-only warrants, both for drug possession, that were ignored by Detective Sheeta while he surveilled me. Again at my hearing, when Sheeta was asked why he allowed this to go on for so long, he alluded to the fact that as of July or August, in addition to the 2 arrest warrants, he also had to go ahead and arrest me on a first-degree sale as a result of a proffer Sheeta personally took from a cooperating defendant, alleging that I was his source of supply. Yet still he watched me for an additional 6 months because he said he wanted to get a pound or more purchased from me, and despite the best efforts of his CIs, nothing ever came to fruition. My prosecutor also tried justifying his actions by saying, "Isn't it right that sometimes throughout investigations like these, judgment calls must be made?" To which Sheeta agreed. I gotta say that's some pretty poor judgment made on a daily basis over a very long period of time. Because let me tell you, I was absolutely reckless. A complete danger to myself and everyone around me. I mean, I was out there high as a kite in a Hellcat doing donuts in the middle of Highway 65 directly in front of the pole camera that ATF installed so Sheeta could monitor me daily. I mean, it was crazy. The things they let me get away with, I don't understand it. One of the last times I actually drove that car, I just got done acting a fool all the way down County Road 10 in Mounds View. I'm heading north on Highway 65, rush hour traffic, stuck at a stoplight. About it, I'm sitting there in this black on black Challenger Hellcat, no front plate, blacked out windows, tinted windshield, no license, no insurance, 2 felony warrants, fucking whacked out of my mind. And I think I see lights, so I boot through the red light, on the shoulder, around traffic, all the way through Blaine. I get to where I'm going, jump out the car, just not even knowing what to do, but there's no sirens, no nothing. Nothing, because I remember thinking there's no way I just got away with this. Well, I didn't. They let me. It's crazy. I remember thinking I'm going to kill somebody. So I actually made the conscious decision to send that car on down the road. And looking back, it's concerning to think that even in the midst of being high on ridiculous amounts of meth and heroin on the daily, at times I actually showed a greater concern for my community's safety than some of its very own law enforcement. So to really put this into perspective for you, you have Sheeta investigating me when 2 warrants pop for possession, but he wants me for distribution, so he waits. He catches a break a few months later when a man he busts alleges he distributed roughly 30 pounds of meth for me over the past few months. Sheeta gets the go-ahead to arrest me for first-degree sale, but still he waits and watches me run around Blaine literally like it's my personal playground for 6 more months. It wasn't until he actually received pressure and was told to bring a close to this investigation he finally prepared to bring me in. As he prepared for what they called takedown day, Sheeta applied for and received a search warrant from my girlfriend's mother's home, stating in the application that though he knows I conduct no business there, being that it isn't my home, he believes I may store cash and or documents there. That was enough for a judge to grant a daytime knock warrant to search in plain sight for documents. Then on the morning of December 3rd, 2020, Sheeta and the rest of the task force show up fully militarized where they find me in the front yard as they approached. They placed me under arrest for my warrants. After I was detained, rather than walking up to the door, knocking and showing their warrant to the homeowner, which were the limitations set by the judge that issued the warrant, Sheeta instructed his team to line up in front of the door, then knock it off its hinges, almost knocking over my girlfriend's mother as she went to open the door for them to see what was going on. Keep in mind, this is a household that consists of my girlfriend, her little sister, their mother, and their 86-year-old grandfather, all of whom were home at the time, and not one of them have ever been suspected of, charged with, or convicted of a crime of any kind ever in their lives. Sheeta knew all of this, but he was there to send a message and to hurt me by hurting those I love. So they rush in screaming, guns drawn like they're looking for bin Laden. They detain her mother and sister who are working from home due to the pandemic, and also her 86-year-old grandfather that was watching TV from his recliner in the living room. While they cuffed her mother and sister and placed them at the kitchen table, another team member was in the basement waking my girlfriend out of bed with an M4 assault rifle barrel in her face. He then placed her in cuffs and brought her up to the kitchen table as well. At that point, they hauled me from outside into the kitchen where I watched her mother cry and plead with these officers to tell her why they were doing this to her in her home. But they just ignored her. Then still crying, she asked to see some sort of documentation. They laughed at her, said they weren't required to, and told her they were going to tear her home apart. I thought about that morning every day for the past 9 or 10 months, and how whether it was legal or illegal for them to do, it was ultimately as a result of my actions that brought those men to her doorstep, and I will have to live with that guilt for the rest of my life. But the way I witnessed these officers actually take pleasure in violating those innocent people was shocking and downright horrifying. So trust me, I would love nothing more than to release body cam footage from this event to show people firsthand how this team operates. But go figure, they don't wear them. So instead, I will continue to turn down every deal that allows conduct to be swept under the rug. I will have my day in court, and this will come out. As I've now laid out in detail for everyone to understand using facts from Sheeta's own investigation and testimony, Sheeta showed from the very start to finish that he doesn't believe laws apply to him. He gets to pick and choose when to obey judgment when he wants to best serve his interests rather than that of the community. And just as anyone has somehow forgotten how dangerous this ego above all type of mentality truly is, I remind you of the trial of Derek Chauvin. when that prosecutor had to explain Chauvin motive to the jury as to why he murdered George Floyd in the street, showing no regard for human life, the prosecutor stated simply it was because of his ego, because he was the big man with the badge and nobody was going to tell him what to do. Now, it goes without being that the trauma inflicted on my girlfriend and her family by Sheeta and that task force doesn't even begin to compare to what Mr. Floyd went through in those final 9 minutes and 44 seconds of his life, or what his family has went through since. But I think the Floyd family would agree with me when I say there is no room for nada one officer anywhere in law enforcement that shares that same ticking time bomb, ego above all mentality with Derek Chauvin, like Jonathan Sheeta most certainly does. Sheeta and anyone like him gotta go, period. End of story. So when there's documented proof of such behavior, how about we start removing these Sheeta Chauvin types from our law enforcement, and this time let's do it before someone is killed. That's what I'm setting out to do, but I can't do it alone from in here. I need to find a civil attorney that believes in these issues as strongly as I do. So if you're interested in this case, please contact me or come see me. For everyone else, please share this video any chance you get. I'm also looking for a criminal attorney for my innocent girlfriend who's still being charged with a first degree, despite me telling anyone and everyone that she knew nothing about nothing and it was all mine. I mean, if all you want is for her to say something about me, tell me what it is. I'll say it about myself. Just leave her alone. Crazy thing is, they know she's innocent. She'd investigated me for 14 months, had numerous CIs. He monitored all my messenger content for a year, and the only thing he documented in his report regarding our relationship were intimate photos and conversations, which is actually kind of creepy and a whole other issue all on its own. So it appears they are moving forward with attempting to sabotage the life and future of an innocent person for whatever reason. So she needs a lawyer. So again, please contact me or come see me, and everyone else, please share this video. Thank you for listening. Gina, my love, don't give up on us, darling. We got this.